Hey everybody, it's Mark again, and we have another clock to work on. I'm in the mood to work on some Black Forest clocks. That's what I've been working on the last few days. Not cuckoo clocks, but Black Forest type clocks. I say last few days, last couple of weeks. But anyway, I bought this clock movement. There's a video of me working on my Sora work clock, and it was my first wooden plate movement, and I didn't want to take it apart because it's worth quite a bit of money. And so I bought this other movement only to practice on, but I never got around to doing it because I watched a YouTube video, I believe it was James Martin, where he takes a wooden plate movement apart. So after watching that video, I was comfortable enough to work on my Black Forest or work clock. And so I never got around to working on this clock. I bought this clock from GW also. This movement from GW also didn't come with a dial, shield, weights, pendulum, or anything. And then later, I bought a shield off of Etsy. I think I'm going to put on this movement. So anyway, kick back, relax, grab something to eat, grab something to drink, grab something to smoke if you choose to do so. And let's get started, and hopefully you can learn things. So this is the movement, and it's a pretty big movement. It measures 6¼ inches wide by 5 3/8 of an inch deep, and a total of 8 3/8 inches long. Bigger movement than the last couple, than those movements right there. I'm still messing with the pendulum on that thing. This thing is really picky. I might have too heavy of a weights on it. Those weights are 700 grams, and those weights are almost 1,000 grams. Those weights are a little over 700 grams. Those weights are almost 1,000 grams, and that will make your clock run fast. But I don't have the right pendulum on it either. But sometimes I got it adjusted right, and then I come back up here, and it's like running too fast. Like in this case, it was running 3 hours fast, and where it was only running maybe a half hour fast. And anyway, it's picky to work on. And that's why the clock is stopped right now. But this thing does strike on a bell, but it didn't have a bell. And some parts that I bought has a bell. And so hopefully I can get that bell to work for this clock. Didn't have hands, didn't have any of that stuff. And it's not striking. So I got to figure that part out also. So the first thing I need to do is take this back off. And there's wires that you pull to take the back off. So let me do that. I say wires, they're more like nails. And once you take those nails out, you can pop the back off. Nothing is moving. It's going to take a heavy weight. I can tell that right away. The gong ain't striking, and that's because this lever here is supposed to be on that side. Now it's striking. It's not shutting off. So anyway, and there's cobwebs all over the place. I gotta take the plates off. There's 2 extra nails here to hold this bridge into place. But to take the plates off, you take the nails off that are up here. And once you take that nail off, you should be able to push this plate forward. And it comes off. And you can see there's brass bushings in these plates. So now I can take the escapement wheel out. This thing is extremely dirty. There's grease and crap on it. It definitely needs a bath. But to take the grate wheel out, you got to take the strike side off also, but you also have to take this pieces off. So let me do that, and I'll get back to you. And I just got through working on a clock. Most of these count wheel clocks are tripped by a pin that's on the end of these levers. Whether there's 2 pins, or if it's a cuckoo quill, there'll be 4 pins. If it strikes just on the hour, there'll be 1 pin. And I just got through working on a clock, and it was my first clock ever that wasn't tripped by this. It's tripped by the pins that are on this intermediate wheel. And this clock is only going to strike on the hour because there's only 2 pins on this intermediate wheel. This intermediate wheel rotates 1 full turn in, it rotates 1/2 turn in 1 hour. So it takes 2 hours for it to rotate 1 full turn. If there's 4 pins, it will strike on the hour and half hour. But in this case, there's only 2 pins, so it only strikes on the hour. Again, it rotates. I gotta get this. This thing has not been taken apart in a very long time. This washer off to get this off. Again, this thing will rotate 1 complete turn in 2 hours. So because it only has 2 pins, it rotates a half a turn for the hour, and then it rotates a half a turn in 1 hour, so it only strikes on the hour, and then it rotates the other half a turn on the next hour. So anyway, there's 2 pins. It strikes just on the hour. And the other clock that I worked on didn't have this. This is the clutch system. I mean, you see how dirty this is? It's got crap all over it. But that's the clutch system. And if it wasn't for this strike side, I could take this grate wheel out. Well, wow, that's a first. I was able to take the grate wheel out without taking the strike side apart, which that's the way it should be. But you see how dirty this thing is? It's extremely filthy. I'm looking for markings because the last clock that I worked on, it had KW here and here. But in this case, there's like a snowflake maybe. So the next thing I need to do is take the strike side off, and there's a piece of metal that runs all the way up here and all the way up here. And so I need to take that off to get to the strike side wheels. I take the count wheel off. And there's a pin that goes into this wheel down here, this gear. Gears go into wheels. And that's why it's a gear, because it is going into the count wheel. But there's a pin to take this gear off, and so I need to do that. And once you take that pin off, you should be able to pull this wheel off. And it hasn't been off in a very long time. There we go. It's a brass wheel. Gear. And so, again, the next step I need to do is, I can take this nail out up here and take this strike plate off. I should be able to take it off without taking the metal plates off that I was talking about. Now I can take the governor pin out, third wheel with warning pin, second wheel that has the cam on it that this brass piece here fits into, and the strike wheel. But to get these parts off, I have to take this metal straps off. So I'm going to do that off camera. There's a very long steeple that bit in there. Now these levers are these pieces right here are actually the pivots that these levers go into. And to get those levers out, you pull those pivots out some or all the way, and then I still got to take this brass piece off, or this metal piece off. And when you're taking these metal straps off, you might get lucky and pull the nails out without damaging the holes, or you might have to use different nails or put the nails in different holes, because like in this case, the strap came off through the nail head. It just something that with these older clocks, why they didn't use screws, I don't know. But that's what they used. So now with those two metal straps out, I should be able to take these parts out. Now this is different for me because I think this holds this piece in place also. But I'll remove the pivot. Or back the pivot out that they use, which is just a fancy nail. And now there's the only thing that's holding this in is this piece right here. Now I'm going to have to look at that closer, so stand by. There's actually a nail that goes through here. And once I take that nail all the way out, you should be able to see this nail. Once I take it all the way out, this part should come out. Now the only thing left is what trips the hammer. And the question is, do I want to take that apart? I don't think I do. I think I could clean it up with my Dremel without taking it apart. And this piece here. I want to take that piece out if I can. And you should take pictures prior to starting on working on a clock. This screw has been in there for a very long time, and I don't want to come out. I'm going to take this stuff off so I can recondition the wood, because it needs a drink. It's thirsty. One screw out, but I don't know what I'm going to do about that screw. I'm probably going to have to take my Dremel and make a longer slot in it. So I used my Dremel and made a longer slot in it, was able to get the screw out. Now to get this rest off, it's threaded, this post is threaded into the wood. And so now it's all apart, so now I can clean that all up. And the bridge, this is the bridge assembly for the birch and crutch assembly. They got nails in there to keep it in place, so I'm not going to mess with that. So I'm going to clean all these parts up and I'll get back to you. Using Howard beading wax, I got the case all reconditioned. I still have to take a toothpick to all the pivot holes. As you can see, there's gunk in those holes. And so you should be able to see through the hole, but you can't. This hole you can, this hole you can, but this hole you can't. But now it's on to cleaning up the parts themselves. I got parts out of my ultrasonic cleaner, but they still look like crap. So I'm going to take my Dremel to these parts. These wheels are extremely tough to clean up. I spent 10 minutes on this wheel using Mothers, which normally shines things up, using a Dremel with a wire brush. They're brass. This is a magnet, and they are brass wheels, as the only time the magnet sticks is when it hits the steel pin. But it's very difficult to clean up. And what I found best was putting this in my drill, using a scrubby pad, and it looks better than what it did. This is what it looked like before. And so, very difficult to clean up. I've got all these lights around, and it's still really dark in here. But this is what the third wheel with warning pin looks like right now. And as you can see, it's getting cleaner. But this is going to wear out my battery on my drill really fast. It's not going to be the shiniest movement, but it'll work. I told you my battery on my drill was going to die. I didn't think that my Dremel would quit working. I bought this thing back in 1991 when I was stationed in Barksdale Air Force Base, Bossier City, Louisiana. And for it to last 30 plus years, I think I got my money's worth. And this is after putting these parts in my ultrasonic cleaner, 45 degrees Celsius, and I left them in for 30 minutes. Now I want to show you the caked on stuff that's on these parts. I got a screwdriver. Hopefully you can see that. That's the kind of stuff that is caked on. Ultrasonic cleaners will not, and I repeat, will not clean stuff like this off. Now, I have a pocket watch cleaner that would, and the reason why I say it would, it's got 3 jars. First jar, cleaning solution. You put all the parts in a basket, you put it down in the jar, and it spins around while it's cleaning. And the spinning action will throw these loose, will throw the stuff to the side. An ultrasonic cleaner only uses vibration. If it was to spin while it was vibrating, it would clean up these parts. But there's just a lot of caked on stuff on here. And I'm putting quite a bit of pressure using the screwdriver to clean off this stuff. There's probably a millimeter worth of caked on junk on every one of these parts, and that's why it's taking me longer to clean than normal. And that's probably what threw out my Dremel, and the fact that it's old like me. See how nasty that is? Anyway, I've just got a few more parts to clean. I wish I had my Dremel. As you can see, it's dark outside. It's 4:30 in the morning. I woke up around 1:30, couldn't go back to sleep, so here I am working on this clock. I really need my Dremel, but I want to check out the count wheel. Now, I told you that this clock only strikes on the hour, but I still want to check out the count wheel to make sure that the slots don't have bumps in them. It's a big count wheel, as my microscope don't go up high enough to point it like that, so I'm going to have to tilt it to look at the slots. Now, because this clock only strikes on the hour, I just want to make sure that there's no major humps in the slots, just to allow it to go into the slot, because it only strikes on the hour. And this one has a chunk taken out of it right there. Here's the 12 o'clock in the 1 o'clock position, and you will see there's a hump right there, and that could affect it. If it hits right there on the 12, it won't stop until it hits right there. So I need to take my file to that one. So let me do that. Because I had my file out, I went ahead and went around all of them anyway, but as you can see, the 12 o'clock is now smooth. No humps in those 12 and 1 o'clock position. But as I've told you, that there's a chunk taken out of this one. It shouldn't affect the clock from working. So next thing I want to look at under the microscope is the verge pallets. You can see where it's was rubbing right here and right here. It shouldn't affect its performance. What you really want to look at is the pallet itself, which is this. And this should have an angle on it, which it does, but and this other side it's got an angle on it, but it kind of tapers off. I wish I had a Dremel that was working. I'm going to have to use a file. It's not perfect, but it's better. And I want to check out the lever that actually goes into the count wheel. This lever here. Because you want it to be straight across. If I can figure out this, you want it to be straight across. You don't want it to have a hump in it like it does. So I'm going to go ahead and file on that. And I'm okay with that. Remember, if this thing has a hump on it, you know, this This is going around like so. Turn this thing off and get it out of my way. This is going around like so. And if it has a hump on it, it might not shut off, in theory. So I like cleaning them up. And again, the parts, they look better, but this is the escapement wheel, which is the most important wheel to me compared to the count wheel, and it's because my Dremel is no longer working. It's been cooling off all day. No power. I don't know if there's a fuse in here somewhere, but like I said, this thing has lasted me over 30 years, and I will buy another Dremel. They make cheaper rotary tools. Hopefully the new Dremel that I buy will be made like this one. The Dremel is the brand name, and I will buy another one because this thing lasted 30 plus years. And hopefully the newer ones are made the same way that this one was made. The chains are also corroded, dirty. I'll worry about those after a while. It's now time for me to put this clock back together. But before I do, remember I have to take toothpicks to all these pivot holes. So let me do that. And you can see how dirty those toothpicks are. And that's what came out of those holes. Your clock will not run properly with the pivot holes being that dirty. Okay, the first thing you need to determine is which way the great wheel actually turns. Now, it ratchets clockwise, so it turns counterclockwise. And the reason why you want to determine that, because this pin right here hits this pin down here, which got to do with the bell system on top when it has a bell. So when I turn it counterclockwise, you'll see this lever. You'll see this lever here pushes on this lever, which in turn pushes on the hammer above. You should be able to see that now. So the next step is to put the second wheel with the cam on. And if you watch my last video, I first started off with putting Rodico on, but because this levers can go on last, you don't need to put Rodico on. Next step is the third wheel with warning pin. And I'm going to put the warning pin at about the 7 o'clock position. And then the ply. The governor fan. But before I put the governor fan on, when I cleaned up the governor fan now spins 2 loops. And it's called a governor fan to control the speed of your strike. With it being this loose, it's going to strike really fast. So I need to tighten it up. And the governor fan is broken right here. Hopefully you can see that. The band that goes around is broken. But with me pushing on these, I was able to tighten it up. And now it'll work properly. Now this clock, the movement is big enough that I could take the time side wheel out without messing with the strike side. So now I need to put the plate on the strike side. And I'm going to do that off camera. You have to start with a great wheel and work your way up. Now on this clock, I'm going to have to shine a flashlight in here so y'all can see it. The third wheel warning pin strikes on the outside of that lever that goes into the cam. The last clock that I worked on, it hit on the inside of that lever. And that's just because that's the way that clock was set up versus this clock being set up. So there's also this wire right here. This wire right here, which falls into a slot to push that lever down into the cam. And you can see that that lever, the way it's designed, is currently in that cam. So the next step that I have to put on is this lever right here, which this wire here serves 2 purposes. It lifts that lever out of the cam, and because the way it's shaped, it's going to stop the third wheel with warning pin while the clock is in warning. And so it goes underneath. You should be able to see there's a wire coming off that brass, well, what should be a brass lever, but in this case it's a metal lever. This wire right here. This short wire lifts that wire when the clock is activated. And so I got to put this on next, and I'm going to do that off camera. You remember this piece here goes in these two slots on this brass piece, and then a nail goes through it. I told you all wrong earlier when I told you that that third wheel warning pin hits the outside of this lever. I was turning the great wheel wrong. It ratchets to the right, and I got to turn it clockwise, counterclockwise. So currently the third wheel warning pin is hitting the inside of that lever, and you should be able to see that right there. Let me get a stick. It's hitting right there. And so when I'm turning this lever correctly and I lift this up, the third wheel warning pin is now hitting that wire. And you should see it right there. So when this lever drops, the third wheel warning pin can now move. And I might have to adjust the clock a little bit because it's not this spring seems to be working, but I might have put these pins in too much because it's not stopping like I want it to. So stand by. So after repositioning the third wheel warning pin, it all is functioning properly now. When this lever on the front comes up, that wire stops the third wheel from spinning. When this lever on the front drops, the wheels rotate and it strikes. And then the lever drops into the cam, and the third wheel warning pin is hitting this side of that lever. So now it's time to put the time side back on. And you want to make sure that you put these pins in so your plate doesn't come forward. I thought I was recording, so I was going to have to do it all over again. Time side great wheel has got a hole in it. That's what the intermediate wheel goes on. The strike side great wheel has a hole in it also, but that's what the pinion gear goes on that drives the count wheel. But the strike side has got the pins. So time side, no pins. Strike side, pins. So next is the second wheel. It goes in, and the lantern pinion matches up with the wheel. Then the escapement wheel, and the lantern pinion matches up with the second wheel, just like so, but I got to put it in the appropriate hole, pivot hole. And then the bridge and crutch assembly. It goes on, and you drop it in its pivot hole. And then you start putting the plate on, and I'm going to have to do that off camera. Great wheel, and then you line up the second wheel, and then the third wheel, and then finally the bridge and crutch assembly. And again, don't forget to put the nail in at the top to prevent these pallets from coming out. And you want to check for end shake in all the wheels to make sure you have end shake, or it's not going to work properly. So as you can see, it's ticking away. And the next step I need to do is put these brass or metal pieces back on here and oil the movement. Again, they have brass bushings. Some people say you don't oil it. Well, I don't understand their logic behind that. A regular brass clock has got bushings of some sort, and you oil those because it prevents wear and tear. So I need to oil the movement. Now again, this clock is only the second clock that I've ever worked on where the pins were on the intermediate wheel. This clock was the first clock, and it strikes on both the hour and the half hour. So there's 4 pins on that intermediate wheel. And I'm still adjusting the pendulum on this clock. It's running way too fast. But this clock only has 2 pins on it. And we're going to make a mark on this wheel so you can see that it only spins half a turn every hour. Now you're going to have to pay attention to this. Let me see if I can come up with a hand. All right. Now watch that mark. Now the hand slipped on me a little bit, but as you can see, it was here and now it's there, and I've done around one complete revolution with the hand. So we're going to do it again. I got the mark up here. If I can get my hand to work now. I got the mark up here. And again, it only went 1/2 a turn in 1 hour. So therefore, it only strikes on the hour because there's only 2 pins. There's 1 pin here and 1 pin the opposite side over here. And so that's what I like about round hole minute hands versus these square hole minute hands. Is round hole minute hands, you can adjust where the hand goes. And with these square hole minute hands, you have to adjust this wire. And if you watched my other video, I sat here and adjusted that wire on the other clock and adjusted it and adjusted it and adjusted it until I got it perfect, but it strikes at 5 minutes till it should strike. And because that wire somehow got bent after I put the movement all back in the clock. But the next thing I need to do is clean up the chains, and I'll go ahead and I need to come up with a bell. Now, if you watch my videos, I ordered some stuff on an online auction. I wanted some stuff, and this bell was in there. So if I can come up with a method for this bell to work, this is what I'm going to use. Now, I'll tell you right now, I personally don't like the sound of a bell when it's on the hour. And every time you turn the camera on, something goes bad. I was just doing this as a temporary thing. But that is what it's going to sound like when it strikes. I personally like the sound of a gong better. But this is not set up for the gong. And so you have to use a bell. But I don't like the sound of a bell. It's just like I mentioned this on my Septima Sonora clocks. I've got 2 clocks. One is gong, which is not a typical Septima Sonora clock, and one is a bell, a set of bells. I like the sound of the gongs. That, again, it's not going to work because it needs to hit right here where there would be more noise. Anyway, y'all get the drift. Different type of gong. Now, if it was positioned just right, it would echo through the wood. But to me, it sounds better than a ting bell. So it didn't have a bell. Now it has a bell. And again, I personally don't like the tinging of the bell. Now, on some clocks, they have a bell for the half hour and a gong for the hour. I love that style. That way you know because of the sound, whether it's a half hour or the hour, if it's 1 o'clock. So the next step I need to do, like I said, is clean up the chains. I hope y'all are liking this video. I hope that it's helping you. Again, this is a second clock, and I've been working on Black Forest clocks. I love Black Forest clocks, cuckoo clocks, Black Forest clocks in general, cuckoo quail clocks. It's count wheel systems are typically triggered by the minute wheel with center arbor. That wheel right there that has the pins on it. This is a second clock that I picked up right in a row that is triggered by this intermediate wheel versus the minute wheel with center arbor. Now the U-wire, if I can focus this thing in, looks okay. No flat spots on it. Now the B-wire, it's got a lot of grease and corrosion, but I'm not seeing any flat spots. And you will notice that the way they made these loops, one goes that way and one goes this way. But I'm going to take my round tapered file and clean it up, just touch it up just a little bit. That way to get some of the corrosion off of it. I also took my drill with this wire brush and cleaned it up some. That looks a lot better. No flat spots that I can see. And you want the V-wire to be able to dangle like that. And both loops have to be the same diameter. Because if they're not the same diameter, then one side of the loop is going to touch the U-wire prior to the other side. And so I still have to make a pendulum leader wire for this. But I want to go ahead and show you what I'm going to use for the dial. I put some of my tools away that I don't need, sorry. Now, like I said, I bought this dial off of Etsy a while back. And I think I paid like $30 to include shipping for it. It's a shield. It is curved, as most of them are. And if I remember, I'll post a NAWCC posting. I believe it's from the NAWCC, why these curve. And a lot of times when they curve, they split down the middle. And as you can see, I glued this one. Now you can also see that I've got these eye hooks on. And the reason I have these eye hooks on, most people, when they pick up a clock, they're going to pick up the clock from the front. Originally, these hooks would go into a hole in the wood. And if you love your clocks like I do, you don't want to trust those hooks. So I'm going to use screws that will go down these eyelets and into the wood. That way you can pick up this clock from the base of the clock without the movement dropping to the floor. Now these shields might have been made earlier than the movement, but I bought that shield specifically. I've got another wooden plate movement downstairs, but I'm glad I chose this one because it has the bell, and because it's the second clock that I worked on that has these pins on this intermediate wheel versus the wheel that's part of the minute pipe. And I'm going to have to take this clock, the count wheel, back off. The clock keeps perfect strike sequence until 6:30. And then at 6:30 or 6 o'clock, it skips. I thought I took care of the count wheel on that clock, but apparently I missed the 6 o'clock. Every other time it strikes perfectly, but after 6, it's off. It's either 6 or 6:30. I'm going to have to look at those two slots on the count wheel again. But anyway, I'm getting there. It's now 8 o'clock in the morning, and I've been up after only getting a couple hours of sleep since 1:30, and it's time for me to get some shut-eye. So before I get back to working on this clock, which I needed a rotary tool, and I went to 3 different stores looking for a Dremel variable speed rotary tool, and they didn't have any. Well, they had one, but it was battery operated, 12 volt, and I didn't want a battery operated rotary tool. So I bought this one at a local store, Genesis brand. It's a multi-speed, and paid $28 for it. But anyway, I needed that to work on this clock. But before I finish working on that clock, I want to do some adjustments on this clock. All right, that was 7 o'clock, and that showed 7 o'clock also. At 6 or around 6, it messes up. So let me get there. I'm at 12 now, and it's done perfectly. That's 5, and it's done perfectly. At rank 7. Therefore, it's got a burr that I missed on the 6 o'clock position. So I need to take the count wheel off and fix it. And to take the count wheel off, you got to take the back door off. The back, very back. It's not a door, it's a plate. Once I got the screws off, I pry underneath to get the nails out, and now I can take the count wheel off. And this position right here, where it's at, is the 6 o'clock position. But it struck 7 times, meaning it also it didn't stop until the 6:30 position. And if you don't know, if you couldn't remember, this wide slot is a 12 through 130 position. And then this is a 2 and 230, 3 and 330, 4 and 430, 5 and 530. And then this area right here is a 6 and 630. Looking at it under my microscope, this flat spot looks pretty good to me, but it's like I said, the 6 o'clock position is the only time it is screwing up. I'll go back here to the 5 o'clock position, and it looks good. But I'm thinking there's a piece of slag right here on the side. It might be hitting that. So I'm going to take my file to this thing and clean it up and put it back on and see what happens. And I thought I cleaned this up, but apparently I didn't. I went ahead and cleaned up every slot. Anyway, there's a 12 through 130. There's a 2 and 230 position, 3 and 330 position, 4 and 430, 5 and 530. And here's the culprit, the 6 and 630 position. So now it looks good. I'm going to put it back on and see what happens.
I just got through striking 12. And this time it messed up at 5. So I'm going to have to take it back off. I'm looking at the lever that goes down to the count wheel itself under my microscope and see if I can get it back there. Ah. You see, it's not that smooth. And I think that might have something to do with it. Because this is the side that would be rubbing up against the side of the notches when it goes in to the count wheel slots. And it's not that smooth. So I'm going to have to see if I can clean that up. Taking my rotary tool to it without taking it off. And if I could get this thing to find it again. You see now it's a lot smoother. So I think that will work. But I'm going to look at the wheel again also. Okay, let's try this again. Just got through striking 1. The hour hand is getting off. It did it again. Dang it. It worked fine on the bench. That's a 425 gram weight. But it's shutting off. A lighter weight, it'll strike one time, but it quits because it's too light of a weight. I probably need a little bit heavier weights on it, but that'll work for now. I'm going to show you Martin's channel later, but I started watching Cheryl Adair's video where she's repairing a Antonio clock. This is her picture of her and her dog. That's what you got to look for. She's very talented. She hasn't been repairing clocks that long. She's a lot better teacher than I am. Take the time to subscribe to her channel also. This is Martin's YouTube channel. That's his current profile picture for his YouTube channel. He's got some really nice clocks, really nice short videos, and let me click on one of these clocks.
So what do you say, Mark?
This is the pendulum bob
Homemade pendulum I made.
that his father made out of a can lid of a jar. And so I found some lids that I'm going to use. This came off of hot peppers and jelly and
So what do you say, Mark?
different jellies and pickled beets and stuff. So
Homemade pendulum I made.
I think I'm going to use these. But find his YouTube channel, subscribe to his channel. Mark_YTB 3051. I support.
So what do you
I'm
say,
a
Mark?
firm believer in supporting younger horologists.
Homemade pendulum.
So I got 3 lids with holes in them, and once I paint them, I think they'll look good. So I was sitting here video chatting with somebody the other day, and I was playing with a bread tie, and this gave me an idea. I told you in other clock videos that these clock hands are hard to come by. So I thought, why not take some wire and make me a clock hand? Now, of course, this is bread tie, so I'm going to take some wire to make a pair of clock hands. I thought that is a cute little clock hand, and you can get fancy with it, and it's cheap. Now, I've got a tool that twists wire, but currently I got way too many projects going on, and my desk is full, and I don't know where that tool is. So this is just going to be an experiment here. I put these 2 pieces of wood in here to give it a little bit of a design, and if I had that tool, the twist would be nice and even. But anyway, again, this is just me being me and doing things differently. And taking my hammer and putting this wire on this block of metal, I flattened it out. So it no longer looks like wire. Not really. Anyway, it's kind of cool that way. And I will nip the extra off once I put the dial on and know what shape, what size I need. Now, onto the minute hand. So we have a minute hand, but I'm going to have to tighten up the clutch system because, as you can see, the minute hand drops. It's dropping right now. And that's because the clutch system isn't tight enough. And that's the purpose behind the clutch system, is so this hand doesn't drop. And to tighten up the clutch system, you have this either a 2 or 3 prong system. And you bend this so it is more of a C, and you put it back on, and you put your intermediate wheel on, and put the hour pipe on, you put the washer on, and then you press this intermediate wheel down until you see the holes that this pin fits in, which I can't see the holes yet. It's dark in my room. Stand by and let me do it off camera. And as you can see, it's now tight. The hand isn't dropping like it was. And again, I will snip the extra off once I put the dial on. And I had to figure out where the hand actually went. I couldn't bend the wires so the hole was square. So I'm winging it, so to speak. I gotta tighten up the hole. And I took my hammer and I smashed that hole in, and then using this tapered square file, I should be able to push it in to open up the hole. And as you can see, it turns. I need to harden the wire now. As you can see, it's taken away. However, it's not in beat. And I don't want to mess with it on here because the stand that I'm using is not level. And the chains are getting caught in the holes that I drilled in the wood. Freehanding it. The gong, the hammer needs to be adjusted some. But again, the chain's getting caught in the wood, and that's why it's doing what it's doing. It's not a good enough stand for this movement. And just when I think I'm almost done with this clock, I was putting the back on, and this was laying on my desk. Do you know what that is for? That's the nail that holds the back plate on. So the third wheel warning pin that came out, the governor pin has come out. So now I gotta take it all back apart and redo it. But before I do take it all back apart and redo it, I'm gonna sit here and watch some comedy. I've said this before. If it wasn't for comedy, I would have blown my brains out a long time ago. I like laughing. I like enjoying. I like going to comedy shows. Unfortunately, StubHub screwed me over with the Gabriel Iglesias comedy show. I got my money back because I have U.S. Bank. It wasn't my fault. It was a tornado, and so I couldn't go to the show because of a tornado. So, what I'm getting at is if you're having a bad day, or if you're getting frustrated, watch comedy. Watch something that'll make you laugh. If you have kids, grandkids that make you laugh, if your spouse makes you laugh, take a break. And while taking a break watching my comedy show, I got out the dial so I could cut the hands. Minute hand is going to go all the way up to where the chapter ring is. And then the hour hand, I got it pointing right where in the middle of the numbers. And if you look at these hands, the minute hand goes all the way up to where the chapter ring is. The chapter ring is that ring that has all the dashes for the minutes. And the hour hand goes in between the numbers. Now, this is not the correct hand for this clock, but it came with the clock. Hour hand, middle of the numbers, minute hand, all the way to the chapter ring. Same way with this clock, and same way with that clock. So, it was free. There's up on the wall running. And let it run for a little bit. Then I'll put the face on and the hands. So the clock was stopping, and the issue is the wire that I got going through the center immediate pin wheel. It was stuck up in there. As you can see, I got the back off again. because this is basically my first time dealing with this type of clock, this is what makes the bell work. This lever, this goes in like so, and then this wire here is what hits on these star wheel pins. This would be considered the 8-point star wheel, all those pins. And when it's done striking, this wire is underneath. It's underneath this pin right here. So that means when it goes into warning, it strikes the bell. And it shouldn't do that. So I have to rotate this great wheel 1 notch down. That way this wire clears that pin. And put it back in there so you can see what I'm talking about. Currently, it's between the pins, but when you make it strike, it came out. This nail here is what holds it in place, and trying to hit the hole. Let's try this again. And this wire here has to be on the other side of this wire so it strikes the bell. And so give me a second so I can do that. And you will see when it's done, the hammer is cocked. And that's because this wire is underneath this pin. And it's not supposed to be underneath that pin. It has to be in between the pins. So when the clock goes into warning, trying to do this on camera so y'all can see it is my biggest issues. That's why I say I need somebody to be videoing for me. When the clock goes into warning, you're going to see this hammer move. If I put enough pressure on the chain to do all that. See, it just moved, and this wire here is still up in the air, so that means it's in warning. When this wire here drops, it's out of warning. So the hammer is doing its thing, it's just not close enough to the bell. And the hammer is cocked again, and that's because of that wire. Now, I tried bending that wire up, and the wire's not long enough. When you bend the wire up, those wires is what keeps pressure on this bottom wire. And so, if you bend the wires up, what happens is this wire here goes forward. And so, bottom line is, I'm going to have to take the rear plate off and move the great wheel 1 tooth. So this wire is in between these pins when it's done striking. This thing has been a pain in the rear to put together. And mainly because my lights are on that side of the desk. I'm going to have to put my lights behind me so I can see. I had this thing here, but the light's not bright enough. And so I'm going to have to put my lights behind me so I can see. After fighting with this and fighting with this and fighting with this, I finally got out my Rodico. And when I got the gears where I wanted, I put the Rodico in the gears so it wouldn't move. I don't have the governor fan in yet, but this is where the hammer should be when it's done striking. And as you can see, that's where it is. It's no longer cocked like it was back here.
And so the only thing I got left to do is put the governor fan in, and I'm going to use Rodico to keep everything in place while I put the governor fan in. Rodico is your third hand. So now, because you took all the parts off, or because I took all the parts off several times, you have to do a function test. I don't have the bell on, but I don't need the bell on to do the function test. I'm going to turn the intermediate wheel, and you're going to see that the governor fan is going to move just a little bit when the clock goes into warning. While turning the intermediate wheel, it's lifting this wire right here, which in turn, this arbor has got the wire. Sorry, grabbing something to point with. This arbor right here, which is connected to this wire, which is lifted by the 2 pins on the intermediate wheel, has got this wire right here, which serves 2 purposes. It lifts up this lever that goes into the count wheel. It also stops the warning pin when it's in warning. So that's what we're going to look for. You can see this wire is lifting. The governor pin is fixing to spin. It spun, but now that wire I was telling you about is stopping the third wheel warning pin. You should be able to see the third wheel warning pin right there. And that wire is barely stopping it. I don't know if my light is allowing you to see in there or not. But anyway, the third wheel warning pin is being stopped by that wire that's attached to the shaft. So when this lever is dropped, that wire that's inside is going to be able to release the third wheel warning pin, and it's going to strike. So now, again, I don't have the bell on, but the hammer is striking. And this is the last strike as this lever is fixing to fall into the count wheel, which it does. And now the third wheel warning pin is being stopped by this lever right here that is part of the lever that goes into the count wheel. And hopefully you can see that. Again, sorry if you can't. The lighting in my room, I'm getting blind. But, and you can see that the bell, the gong, sorry, the hammer was here, but now it's not. And that's because the pin, that is lifted, the wire that is lifted by those pins, it's where it belongs. If it wasn't where it belonged, it would strike when it goes into warning. It would actually hit the bell when it went into warning, but it's not. It's doing what it's supposed to do. It's just my chain keeps getting stuck. Anyway, it's time to put the dial back on. It's time to put the dial on. And you could do these function tests all day long, and you put the movement back in the case and something goes wrong. This clock right here, for example, you will see that the strike weight is on the ground. And the reason why it's on the ground is when the clock goes into warning, it starts striking. And it will continue to strike until the clock is out of warning or the weight hits the floor. So even though I did the function test on this thing, I have to take the movement. I gotta take the clock back apart and fix it. I moved the hands, it quit striking. It's in warning. It'll quit striking when the lever goes into the count wheel, which it did. It's in warning. It's striking. So those are the things that you have to look at during the function test. And like I said, I know I looked at that during the function test, but putting everything back together
something screwed up. Now, I've talked about this in other videos. These shields would have holes in there that these hooks go into, and I don't trust that. So I got eyelets in the bottom, and I got the hook end, and I bent the hook over, and in the top I got eyelets and I got screws in, because when normal people pick up a clock, they're going to pick it up like this. And originally, when those hooks went into those holes, they might have been okay, but you know, this thing was made in the late 1800s, 1880, 1870, something like that. 150 years later, most of these shields are broke. And as I talked about, the wood that they use in the process, you can see that the shield is warped. It wasn't originally warped. Now, there is some paint damage here. I don't know if I'm going to take the time to fix that. I might take my permanent markers and color that in where those scratches are, but at this point, I'm not worried about it right now. I want to get the hands on and get the clock up and running. As you can see, the clock is running, but I have to tilt it sideways some. If I tilt it straight, the foot of the birch and crutch assembly is hitting the side of the case. So it's going to take some adjustment so I don't have to tilt the thing. That sounds pretty good there. And that is my homemade pendulum. Anyway, I hope y'all like this video. The homemade hands, homemade pendulum. I don't have the mini hand all the way on. It doesn't need to be all the way on. It's nice and tight. It's gonna move because I made it out of wire. And the nuts that go on these arbors, they're hard to find. But I hope y'all like this video. Please leave me a thumbs up, leave me some comments, subscribe not only to my channel but all the other channels that I mentioned at the beginning of this video. And you know, here I had a movement, didn't have a bell on it, didn't have a face on it, and I got this thing up and running. May God bless each and every one of you.